Can you give us a bit of an overview of the 2023 tornado season? Like, what was significant about it, and what are some of the key takeaways for organizations from last year?
Yeah, there actually was an uptick in tornadic activity in 2023 versus 2022, but we have to be careful when we draw conclusions like that, when you try to relate one year to the next year or even looking ahead. There were over 1,250 preliminary confirmed tornadoes so far. I think we're still probably calculating near the end of last year. But this ended up being the 12th most on record, and those numbers were actually over our 10-year average. So it was actually a fairly active year across the contiguous U.S. for tornadic activity. The strongest tornado of 2023 was the Rolling Fork, Mississippi tornado, and it was an EF4. So not every year do we have big destructive EF5 tornadoes, but an EF4 with 195 mile per hour winds is obviously going to cause a very bad day for a lot of people. And unfortunately, we had some people that lost their lives in that tornado. I don't remember the exact numbers, but we always have to be on guard for tornadic activity. And that doesn't mean just in the typical spring months. That means all during the year as well.
Well, as you think about 2023 and then you look forward into 2024, should we expect similar conditions for this year's tornado season?
We're coming out of El Nino into a neutral. And so that kind of throws a little bit, for lack of a better term, a wrench into what are the trends maybe looking like as we go into the spring. And we thought we were going to stay in El Nino, which tornadoes still happen. Just historically, they've been on a lower frequency. But we're going into neutral now. And neutral tends to fall on history in between those two categories. So we could maybe think that maybe our tornadic activity won't be as great as 2023 because we'll be in neutral. But I still don't want us to kind of lose our guard on being prepared for tornadic or thinking it's not going to be as active or that we're safe from it.
Well, what risk factors are associated with tornadoes that organizations should be aware of?
And one of the biggest things about tornadoes, at least from, a business or even a residential standpoint, is that everything can be significantly changed or destroyed in a few seconds by a tornado, and that the recovery time from that oftentimes can be longer than anticipated. And to give you an example, we had a tornado that hit a large warehouse type store, a national chain here in the DFW area back in the fall of 2022. And that store is just finally going to be reopening later this year. So that's
Wow.
2-year recovery where they didn't have any business in there. And the building was still standing. I know the roof was damaged, but maybe there was something with the structural integrity that has impacted them from being basically out of commission in that area for will be close to 2 years by the time that they reopen. So on the risk side, if you have multiple facilities, it's most likely that just one facility is going to be impacted. So is there a way that you can kind of continue operations or move those operations to a different facility as part of the recovery? If your employees live nearby also, or if it is a longer track, they may need time and the ability to assess and take care of their own families and their own homes. And that may take them out of the workforce for a little while. Can they work remotely? If they don't have communications at their homes, they might not even be able to work remotely. And then the time, like I said, that they needed just to do what they need to recover or kind of clean up their own personal property there with their families, friends, neighbors, whichever's kind of needed from that.
Well, clearly some amount of preparation is important. So what are some of the key components that businesses should include in their tornado emergency plans to help mitigate some of these things?
You want to make sure that you have a trusted source of weather information also. And redundancy is key too. So having multiple ways to get weather information. How do you share that information? And not only on site, but do you have a responsibility for remote or traveling workers as well? And what does that look like? So when you come down to your severe weather plan itself, of course, at what point do you activate your severe weather plan? Hopefully it's about time that maybe a warning is issued for the area, but what if the storm is already pretty close? Have you been kind of monitoring things as storms develop and move into the area? Are you able to give maybe some more advance notice? And then what does sharing that information look like across your facilities there? Is it an alerting system? Is it speakers, email? You might need different versions of that, especially if you're accounting for travel and or remote employees too, or employees who might not be in the facility. So when it's time to enact the plan, you need to know your sheltering locations. And you pretty much, when you alert people, you need to tell them to take action or to kind of tell them what to do. You're going to want your employees to act quickly and get to shelter.